Restoration England. The term Restoration England, we mean England of the period between 1660 to 1688. All the institution and practices which were suppressed during the Puritan rule in England. So after the Civil War, it was the Puritanism rule in England. So when they ruled, they suppressed lot of things in England. So when all those things were again restored back by Charles II, when he brought to England as a king. So we call that time as the Restoration England. In the Restoration period, England took a lot of great changes in political, parliamental law, science, social standard, and education. England went through a lot of great developments during the Restoration period. The church during the Restoration period, the Anglicanism became the acknowledged religion of the upper class people, and most of the time there was a cold war between the parsons and the squires of that church, because whenever the parsons they agree for something, the squires they did not agree for that. So this was prevailing in the church. When we speak about the political standard of England during the Restoration period, the upper class was divided into Whigs and Tories. The political party actually started from the Civil War. During the Civil War time, there were two parties, which was Royalist and the Roundhead. So that was still carried again in the Restoration period. And the Tories were actually the Royalists. They always supported the king, most probably, and the Whigs were like uh, the people who supported the landowning class in common association with the commercial men, which we can connect them to the Roundhead side. When we speak about the science, there were a lot of great experimental science was spreading fast in England indeed. For the first time in the history of mankind, it was discovered that science could be used for the development of agriculture, industry, navigation, medicine, and engineering. At that time, the famous scientist of that time was Robert Boyle, the chemist, and Sir Isaac Newton. He contributed a lot of things to physics. With the spread of science inquiry, most of the superstitious belief which prevailed among the people lost its grip. Because before that, whenever something bad happens, if there is fire or if there is some plague or if it doesn't rain, people always had a superstitious belief like it is a punishment which was given to them by God. But due to the development of science, people were able to understand reality. That is a great achievement which the science does to people at that time. And most of the playhouses which was closed during the time of Puritan rule in England was again opened. So this was one of the greatest achievement for the England people, because from 1649 to 1660 all the playhouses that was closed and there was no entertainment for the people. So when the theaters re opened, there were a lot of changes in the theaters, because lights were used as candles. There were curtains and painted sceneries in the theaters. Real women they took part in plays, and a lot of dramas they uh, had a great impact in the people. The dramas which took place during the Restoration period was both religious and non-religious, but majority of the period non-religious plays were given weightage. The printing press developed in a very big level. For the first time, a public library in 1684 was established in London, which also meant to be a source of great education for the upper class as well as the lower class people. Standard and living of the people during the Restoration period. As we can say, the credit to English people is like they never lose their standard of living. So the stable diet for them at that time was bread, beer, and meat, and vegetables and fruits formed a small and meat a large part of English made of that period. So there was no compromise which was done to their standard of living even at that time, nor even during the Puritanism rule. They didn't have that type of restriction to the food which they had. They do had a lot of restriction like fasting for God, like one meal a day, all those things, but the standard of living never ever decreased in the English people. And the prohibition of fun which was taking place in the Puritanism period was restored after that. Sports and pastime became very, very proper in England after the Restoration time, because a lot of new games took place: shooting, fox fighting, horseback, polo, wrestling, boxing, sword fighting, and lot of invention of good games and lot of games which was taking place in a very great level. The wealth of England was not distributed equally among all the countries, because some part of England was very rich and very developed, but whereas when we see the countries and the places near the northern part, they were poor. So this poverty still prevailed in England, but at the same time England was going in a development stream. And the major two calamities which happened during the Restoration period was plague and Great Fire. The plague of 1665 carried away almost one fifth of London population, so which was the greatest calamity. And the Great Fire of 1666 raged for 5 long years, destroyed all the churches and other buildings of the city. On the whole, the Restoration period brought a lot of good changes in England, and a lot of development was happening in many fields in England.